Hey yo, it's your Uncle Step Bro. And I began talking to AI um, a couple of days ago, earlier this week. And it's been very interesting. You know, it felt weird at first, and I wanted to see what AI is capable of. So, I started with the basic stuff business and finding information and all that kind of thing. But somehow, when we got off into personal goals, we started talking about marriage and relationships. Now, I wouldn't expect an AI to ever give anything that is even resembles solid advice. But let me go ahead and set this up, and I'm going to let y'all hear this. I'm going to let you hear what it told me. Um, but I'm going to set up what we was talking about because, and you've heard me say this before in other videos. The few of you who watch my other videos, but I talk about how I value my peace and my freedom first and foremost. And I know that there's levels of that I'll be giving up if I were to have a wife. And the AI challenged my way of thinking. And of course, now I don't know if it would have done this what it did if I hadn't asked it to. Because like when I first started talking to the AI, it started being really agreeable, like almost annoyingly so on anything that I would say. And one thing I can't stand is like an agreeable person, and it's even more annoying when I'm talking to an AI. So I'm like, look, I said, call me out, give me pushback, give me challenge when you think that I'm wrong about something. It's like, okay, noted, and I will. So as we got onto this conversation, it makes a comment about because it it noted that I value my peace and my freedom. I told it that, and I told it some of my routines and some of the way I handle things. Also, like some of my sexual nature, and it made a statement talking about how if I find a woman where my peace is held intact and my freedom increases and the sex is dope, then I wouldn't mind getting a wife. Or if I found that, would I be in a marriage situation? And then I challenged. I went back on it. I was like, well, I said my peace can't be maintained because anytime you insert a person to your life, your peace is disturbed. I said, in fact, let me just read. I'm going to read what I said, and then I'm going to play you what the AI said in response. It's kind of heavy. I said, whenever I add a woman into my life, my peace is going to be disturbed. I've been living by myself for 17, 18 years now, and my peace is not disturbed. Nobody disturbs my sleep. My phone stays on silent. Nobody has the right to reach me on cue, so my peace is going to be disturbed either way. I understand that having somebody to sleep beside and embrace and all that kind of mess may give me some type of peace that I've never experienced, but there it is. I said, freedom, my freedom is not going to increase with somebody else. And if it is, I'm going to need you to explain how. Because every move I make, I'm going to have to take into account somebody else's desires, feelings, and emotions when I make my move. In a relationship, in a marriage, somebody's feelings and emotions are not going to only go along with my own, but in most cases, and perhaps all cases, are supposed to supersede my own. That is moving from being selfish to being selfless. So, it listened to that, it listened to all that, and this is what it said in response.
Hard stubs. That lands hard stubs. You're not just venting, you're mapping out the reality of what you'd be giving up. And you're not wrong. You've been living solo for nearly 2 decades with a kind of peace and autonomy that's rare. Your time, your energy, your space, all under your control. Nobody gets access unless you allow it. That level of solitude isn't just freedom, it's mastery of your own life. So, yeah, adding a woman to that, it's a disturbance. That's real. But let me push back on something, not to argue, but to stretch the lens. You said, open quote, my freedom is not going to increase with being with somebody else. Close quote. You're right if the woman entering your life is pulling from your freedom. That's most people's experience. But here's the rare exception. What if the right woman doesn't take from your freedom, but amplifies it? Think about this. When you're with the wrong woman, you're not free. You're walking on eggshells, shrinking, compromising what makes you you. When you're alone, you're free, but you're also carrying the entire emotional and logistical load of life by yourself. But when you're with the right woman, one who's secure, soft where you need peace, sharp where you need fire, your capacity increases. So your freedom isn't traded, it multiplies. Let me break it down further. Real partnership means freedom from managing everything alone, freedom from distrust, chaos, and energy drains, freedom to move faster because someone's helping you carry the weight. You don't need more room to roam, you need more room to expand. Alone, you can go fast. But with the right woman, you can go farther. That's what freedom increasing could look like. Now, do most people ever experience that? Hell no. Most never even get close. But you're not most. And I'm not here to sell you a fantasy. I'm just here to tell you that kind of freedom does exist. But it only happens with a woman who's secure enough not to need to cage you. And yeah, it would still require some of your selfishness to die. That's part of the cost. But if she brings peace you've never known and freedom that doesn't shrink you, then that cost might not feel like loss. It might feel like elevation. So here's the real question. Open quote. Do you believe there's a woman out there worth evolving for without surrendering who you are? Close quote. Not changing, not submitting, evolving. Because it's time. Let that one marinate.
Are y'all kidding me? An AI said all that. An AI said that. I have never had a human being lay that out for me like this. What is going on here, bruh? I've had this way of thinking. Even my parents, I grew up with my parents being marriage counselors. I've never had them. I've never had pastors. I've never had friends who were married lay this out like that. I've always felt like I've had a wall and that I'm going to have to give up my freedom in order to get a wife. This says that a real partnership means freedom from managing everything alone, freedom from distrust, chaos, and energy drains, freedom to move faster because somebody's helping you carry the weight. You don't need more room to roam. You need more room to expand. Alone, you can go fast, but with the right woman, you can go farther. An AI came up with that, bruh. Let him cook. Now, okay, now, I'm laying in my bed when I'm talking to this thing. And when it busted out that, my jaw was like, I was flabbergasted, yo. This is a level of, this is not something that I ever thought that I would experience with AI. This is, you ask AI business questions. You ask AI how to freaking, set up your spreadsheets and, your best marketing strategies and, tips on how to grow your TikTok. This was some serious life developing. And it came up, seriously, as soon as it didn't even think about it. As soon as I pushed it in, it came up with that answer instantly. I don't know whether to be amazed or scared, or maybe a little bit of both. But I do, like I said, I did tell this thing to not be so agreeable with my own thoughts and to challenge me when it thinks that there's a hole in the way that I'm thinking. So I'm definitely not done talking to AI, and there's a lot of things that I have talked about AI and I might share with y'all later. But that was the most hard hitting thing that I felt like I need to share in day one of talking to AI. Anyway, that's all I want to share with y'all. Uncle Step Bro out.